is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision. Welcome to the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me as always as well is Fede Perez, Maria Britos, and Ralph Hanna. And guys, we have a lot to talk about today, and again, another great week of what's been going on in football and in the world of Paraguayan soccer. Obviously, we saw the league action come about. We saw the first few games start. We saw some Paraguayans in action, some of them scoring, some of them playing in big matches. We will discuss that as well. And you know, guys, I think we should go into that. Fede, let's go to you first. How do you feel now with the start of the league? Obviously, people are getting their predictions in. We got them last week. So far there hasn't been too many surprises going on lately, but it's been good so far. What have you been thinking of the start of the league so far?
Hi, Roberto. First of all, yeah, it's been kind of fun, actually. Tight games, fun games, a lot of goals going on. I think the guys have started out well. You know, the strikers, mainly, they're scoring a lot of goals. So we have pretty fun matches. But it wasn't a perfect week. Unfortunately, it's never perfect here in Paraguay. We have to do something wrong, apparently. We had a blackout in one of the games right before it was about to start. I think that was Nacional and South America. That was a problem. I think that was already on Tuesday. And then we had Guaireña versus Libertad, the match that was supposed to be played on this Thursday. And it was postponed because Guaireña didn't actually have their pitch ready. It was actually very damaged. It looked like a war zone, seriously. People can look up for pictures and you'll find it pretty fast. Guaireña Libertad, it was not what we were expecting to find, especially the players from Libertad that were halfway to Villarrica, a city kind of far away, just a couple of hours from Asunción, but you still have to make the trip. And usually nowadays with COVID and everything, the team that's going to play away there makes the trip on the same day. And Libertad thought that they were going to play, so they were making that trip. And halfway there, they were told that the ground was not going to be able to play there. That it was not in good conditions, and they were all surprised. Seriously, they went to Villarrica after all. But you know, these are details that kind of surprise everybody here in Paraguay, even though these are things that usually do happen here. We've had other grounds that had this problem, and it's actually not the only stadium that's actually going to have problems now for the next matches. Guaireña Stadium now has been this match has been postponed, but their stadium has also been closed down, and so they can fix a couple of things. And it's not the only one, like I'm saying. Also, 12 de Octubre, who played against Olimpia this week after their first home game, they're also being told to change a couple of things, you know, and really weird things that go on here in Paraguay. Also, the stadium of River Plate here from Asunción. So it's a weird situation, you know, because you have people that are supposed to do their job, that are supposed to go to these stadiums, that are supposed to look if everything's okay, and apparently they haven't done their job correctly, or they didn't check these stadiums right before these matches, and now after they were played, now we're being told by the FA that these stadiums cannot be used for a while. So that's the big news here. We're obviously going to talk about the matches itself. We're going to talk a little bit about the results, what we're seeing, the new players that are actually coming up. We have young talent that we're seeing in these first couple of matches that we can probably stand out in a couple of teams, and obviously talk about what happened in the Clubs World Cup. Palmeiras failed to a fourth place. That was something I think most of us weren't expecting. Obviously, Bayern Munich was champion. I think we were expecting that. We talked about it on the last episode. We're probably going to talk about that and about Carlos Gonzalez, everything he did with Tigres and everything he can do with our national team. But let's go to Florida. Let's say hi to the guys that are over there. Let me go to Maria. First of all, I think she left her mate out of this conversation today. I see her comfortable over there. How are you, Maria?
Hey guys, how are you? Yeah, I'm super comfortable today. I'm not wearing a long sleeve. It's pretty hot here. But yeah, there's so much to talk about this week again. The start of the Apertura and so much going on. You know, what's Paraguay without some drama? And like Fede said, you know, the stadiums and all that situation just pretty embarrassing, to be honest. But you know, we'll get more into that pretty soon enough. And yeah, and it's pretty sad too for Palmeiras, what happened to them. But I guess our predictions were pretty off, especially mine, since I said, oh, they could probably have a good competition since they were fresh off the pitch and everything, but I guess not. And yeah, Roberto just mentioned Olympia does have some fresh new kids that they were released in honor of their Dutch founder. I don't know if you guys seen Ralph's tweet about it. It's pretty detailed and it's pretty awesome what they did, and it's pretty different actually. I think I will get into it pretty soon when I can afford it. But other than that, yeah, I'm super pumped for this upcoming season and all the dramas that we have going on. But what's going on, Ralph? I see you, my neighbor.
Hey Maria, hey guys. Yeah, it's good to be here. Definitely warmer, but I've still got some mate just to kind of keep me up in these evenings. I like a little bit of mate. Yeah, it's a full week of action. So much stuff. We had the games at the weekend to kick off the Apertura, and then we had all these midweek games, and then things kick off again on Saturday, and over the weekend we got some good games coming up. Cerro, the only team that's won both games so far. They're playing Libertad, who won their only game so far against Olympia, and they go head to head on Monday, so that should be a good game. And picking up from what Fede said about the stadium, I was really surprised about Guaireña. How did this get in such bad condition without playing a game? Because it was the first game of the season, and of course these stadia they're all inspected by the FA. But what I read was that the FA had gone to inspect it on the 2nd of January. And now the league kicks off, we're in mid-February, and there's been so much rain in Paraguay. Some people must be listening from Paraguay, and I'm sure they'll agree, but there's been so much rain in what is usually the rainy season in the country, but even for this time of year. So maybe that did some damage to the pitch or something, but it's really surprising that they would do this inspection, knowing everything that happens with all this rain, and not think, maybe we should go, just before the actual season kicks off to check. Let's hope they can get it into shape, and then we can have some games there, because that stadium was used last year, and it was great. It's always good to have games in the countryside. One difficulty Guaireña are going to have is another strange rule in Paraguayan football, that the teams from the countryside are not allowed to switch stadiums to teams to Asunción. I think it's part of the idea of this decentralization. So technically, Guaireña can't say, okay, let's just play our home game in Luque Stadium or in Defensores. They would usually go to the closest one still in officially the countryside, so it's not in Asunción Central, and that would be 12 de Octubre Stadium in Itagua. But as Fede was saying, that stadium is also at the moment it's also closed down until they can fix a few things. So for Guaireña's next home match, that could be a bit complicated if they can't fix things and turn things around in time. So let's see. That was definitely some of the drama yesterday, and a disappointment for those of us that like Paraguayan football, because I was looking forward to watching that game to see how Libertad do after that first match, and then I had nothing to do on a Thursday night. So let's hope it all gets fixed. And yeah, I think you guys have covered well all the topics we're going to be picking up. I'm looking forward to talking about a couple of players that are doing well. Olympia's new kit is very interesting. It's different. I wonder how much they actually wear it, because this is their third kit. It's not their second one. We also saw Libertad came with a very interesting red shirts, which I had never seen. That actually their sponsor, Pulp, which is a soft drink in Paraguay, that was actually red too. So usually the sponsor doesn't change color with the kit, right? But it almost blended in. So it's very, very interesting shirt from Libertad. And yeah, looking forward to talking some more. I don't know what Roberto wants us to kick off with.
Well, I would like to have this entire 1 hour discussion about how stylish aesthetically the kits in Paraguay look like, because I think it will definitely be much better than the drama that's been going on the pitches in Paraguay. But yeah, I guess we'll start on with that. I mean, it just feels weird how stuff like this could happen in Paraguay in South America, literally, right at the beginning of the season. Like you said, Ralph. I mean, these guys haven't checked the stadium since January, and they couldn't decide that, hey, there's been a lot of rain here lately. Maybe we kind of have to check it again just to make sure everything is pitch perfect in time for the start of the season. And you saw what happened in Guaireña. So it's it just seems very lackluster in a way, and just really incompetent on the end of those that are managing the stadiums and those that work there, like the groundsmen and women that work at those stadiums, because they need to keep it in the best shape possible as well. These are teams that are going to be playing in continental competition soon. So God forbid something like that is going to happen and you have to postpone a competition in that type of games. It's like, no, you can't. So it's never an easy week in Paraguay, I should say. It doesn't always seem with drama.
Keep in mind, Roberto, that most of these teams don't have other grounds to practice. They usually use their main stadiums as their practice base. That's actually a problem. That's why most of the grounds are so damaged in some of the games. You see them that way. The smaller teams don't have other practicing grounds. That's a big deficit that we have in the Paraguayan football. And so it's not really just about the people that take care of the place, it's just that they overuse the place. So when things like Ralph was saying, it rained too much and you got people stepping on that ground, people stepping on that grass, then when the game day comes, the ground is not ready. The ground is too damaged, and then you got rain, and you can't take it out of the ground. And that's what actually happened in Guaireña. They couldn't take care of the place with the time that they had, and they should have realized this. They should have told the FA right before the match and try to change the stadium and play at another place. Now the match will be played the 24th in Asunción, in the Estadio Defensores del Chaco, the Stadium Defensores del Chaco, the biggest stadium in Paraguay besides the stadium of Cerro Porteño. So that's the solution for now. But the reality is that clubs have the responsibility to keep their stadiums so that the games can be played. They're in conditions. They need to keep them in conditions. It's their responsibility. And Guaireña, on this, they really fell this time.
Well, the other thing is that, these clubs like Guaireña, 12 de Octubre, they're very small clubs. So they also don't have that much of a budget to probably take care of the stadiums. And like you said, they don't even have a facility to train. So it's definitely something that the FA should look into more and help them out if they need to. And now with the situation with COVID, I'm sure they were hit very hard as well. So it's it's a weird situation for everyone. And now that the season has only 10 teams is also another weird situation, because they have to play so soon and they don't have a stadium. Usually to fix this stadium, it should take some time. But that's something else that to consider, the fact that their budget is so small.
And as well, you could also think about how they're investing that money that they're getting. I mean, that's the one crucial part of it all, is that you want to fix stuff like this, which should be commonplace. But of course, like you said, Maria, not all these teams have the luxury to afford a great stadium or a great training facility and whatnot. I mean, even to pay their players, which we've seen a lot of clubs do that. So it makes ends very hard to make ends meet, basically.
Yeah, what I'd be concerned about now is looking ahead to the Intermedia and the lower leagues that are going to start soon. Because if, this is a program with Primera teams, I can't imagine what some of the stadiums are looking like in Intermedia and places where they haven't played since November 2019. And they haven't been receiving money because there was no league last year. There was no, they received some money from the Paraguayan FA to try and help them during COVID, but I don't think any of that would have gone into maintenance of stadium. They rely a lot on some of the games being televised in Intermedia, and then the fans going to the stadium, which is definitely the case of Guaireña. So I think what Maria said about the COVID situation is a good point. They will have expected a lot more revenue from fans going to that stadium which of course they didn't get. And then there's one interesting thing that Libertad, one of the biggest clubs, probably the richest club in Paraguay, they have the advantage of being in Asunción. They have a training ground right outside the stadium. They have another one by the air base, or the airport, I guess it is, up in Iguazu. But then they often train on CONMEBOL's own training pitch, which is just in front of the CONMEBOL headquarters in Luque. So they're like spoiled for riches, let's say. And a lot of teams that are in and around Asunción and Central, so like Greater Asunción, have that advantage too, because actually the Paraguayan FA did put a lot of money into a place called Iguazu, where they built a lot of pitches. It was used a lot for young players, for the youth teams and that kind of thing. But then you have the problem with someone like Guareña, that's 150 kilometers away, so they can't take advantage of these situations. On the flip side, it's very hard for the Paraguayan FA, because how do you know which club in the countryside is going to get promoted which year? Where do you invest? Because maybe now they invest in Villarrica, like a new training pitch, but maybe they get relegated and someone like Dos de Mayo, who's in the very north of the country in a different city, get promoted. And then that money was kind of, misused in that case. So it's tough, I think, for everybody. But it is particularly difficult, I think, for those clubs in rural Paraguay, because they don't have the same kind of amenities that the guys in Asunción have.
We can make up all the excuses that we want, but the truth is that Guaireña should lose this match. Libertad is not going after the points, but the truth is, if you don't have your pitch ready, it's not raining at that moment. It rained 2 days before. That's why the pitch was that way. And they couldn't fix it by time. I think Guaireña should lose this match. That's the reality of things, But Paraguayan football is like that. If the team doesn't go after the points, if the jury doesn't do something about it by themselves, the points are not going to go to the team, and the match will be played on the 24th in Defensores del Chaco, like I said. But it's not. It doesn't look good for a league that's supposed to be 8th in the world, supposedly by FIFA. This is not an organized football league. It doesn't look that way. We're just talking about the second match day. We're not talking in December. We're not talking that on that ground there were 60 matches already. No, we're just talking about the second match of the year. That's what I think makes it shameful, like Maria said.
It gives a bad reception, I think, for the entire country, for the continent, and even for the world, like you said, about being the 8th strongest league in the world. Apparently, such things should not occur in a top division in South America. But we'll see what happens. So we'll stick out from all the drama that's been going off the pitch and focusing on what's been going on the pitch. And Fede, we've been seeing a lot of great young talents, and I think it's interesting what this podcast has to offer, because you always want people on Twitter, on YouTube, they always want to find the next big gems happening in South America. They usually see it in Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, wherever it may be, Uruguay. But in Paraguay, we have some young talents, and thankfully we get the privilege of being able to see and speak about them every week. So what are some of the things that have impressed you, and what are some of the youngsters that have impressed you so far in these first 2 games?
Well, we don't have that many young players playing right now in the first division, but you do find a couple, and some that are actually even coming from last year, but they're still young players that I think can lead the country and make a big career out of themselves. I was looking at that first match between Olimpia and Libertad. You didn't find that many in Olimpia. There were a couple of new players, but we talked about them, like Ramon Sosa. We talked about the players that were coming in from other countries. Also, Olimpia has a new Colombian. But what stands out to me from Libertad is in that midfield is Hugo Martinez. Libertad won that first match versus Olimpia, being the away team. Olimpia playing at home, they lost 1-0 to Libertad, and I love that first half that I saw from Hugo Javier Martinez Cantero, this midfielder, CM center midfielder, born in Santa Elena. He's just 20 years old. His debut goes back to 2018. He was promoted in Copa Paraguay, this cup where usually the subs play it, and the coaches usually don't use their starting lineup. They usually mix it up a lot with young players, and he had his chance back then with 18 years, while he was looking around him and seeing that Ivan Franco was playing, that Julio Enciso was playing. These are players from Libertad that also are at the same age range, and so he was looking at everybody playing around him, and he wasn't getting that much playing time because of all the players that Libertad usually brings. So I wanted to stand him out. He was promoted by the Colombian coach Leonel Alvarez, and he's just such a complete midfielder. He's not that big. He probably doesn't stand out because of that, but he has such a good control with the ball, such a confidence, and I think he's just probably one of those players that you should probably look into in this season, because he was a starter in the first match. He's probably going to be starting in most of the matches, because that's a place that, even though Libertad has a lot of players, Garnero actually chose this guy with just 20 years and left a lot of other experienced players like Blas Cáceres that hasn't even been considered for these two first games. So I'm looking into Hugo Martinez, but I know Ralph and Maria probably have their own. So I want to hear what they're seeing and who stands out for them.
Like another midfielder, like you were choosing, that plays in Luqueño. He's been in Primera for a while. Estivel Moreira. He's just reached 21 this year, and I think he's really starting to develop into a very interesting player. He's playing at the moment in a 2 in central midfield. He plays alongside Aldo Vera, who's a much more experienced player. But what I like about Moreira is he's one of those kind of box-to-box midfielders. He can do a bit of everything, I guess. I mean, he's very technical. He's very gifted technically. He has a nice range of passing. So when I watched him against Cerro Porteño, for example, they were having to drop deep to try and defend against Cerro, who are a much stronger team, and they knew their best chance of attack was going to be a more direct play. So he was trying to play, diagonal passes and long balls and try and help the team that way. But he can also play short and try and link up and bring players in. I say he's a box to box. He's not an attacking midfielder that gets into the box and shoots. That's not his style. But defensively, he can be very strong as well, like snapping at people, winning the ball back. The times that Luque do try and play a bit higher up the pitch, it wasn't so much the case against Cerro because of the opponent, but when they play a bit higher up the pitch, he's good at winning the ball in that final third, and trying to set up attacks from there. So Moreira is a player I liked, and I thought he did okay against Cerro. Luque lost 1-0 in that game, but he was up against two players I'm sure we've talked about a lot, but Villasante and Lucena, who are probably the best midfield partnership in the league at the moment. But he held his own. He went toe to toe with them, and I thought he did well. And that's definitely a player to watch, and a player that is, the club he is at is not his ceiling. He's gonna, if he doesn't jump to an Olimpia, Cerro, Libertad in these next seasons, he's gonna look for something abroad, because I think he's definitely a step above where he is at the moment. So that's my one to look out for is Moreira.
Well, I want to go into the team that I think everyone is talking about as one of the favorites, and obviously winning their first 2 games put them into that kind of discussion again. But 2 players that actually stood out to me, and I think this is a player that has been doing very well so far with Cerro. He's got over 100 games, and I was actually shocked when I heard it in the broadcast that someone so young had so many games, and that's Enzo Jimenez. I mean, Enzo Jimenez is a player that I like him on the wing. I think he's very assertive. I like his intelligence with the ball. I think he's really someone that eventually should get a chance. I think, obviously, in the amount of different wingers and attackers that are going on in Paraguay, maybe he does get a chance under Erizo for the next national team. I'm not saying that he will 100%, but given his form, he does look like someone that is one for the future, at least. I think he was very important in that game again against South America. I also like Robert Morales, who came in as that super sub for Boselli, who also did score actually against Luqueño in that game. In the second game, his first goal in Paraguay. I'd like him as that kind of super sub. I think he's someone that has already demonstrated as well in a couple games that he can be that effective super sub. And, when Cerro is not having those type of attackers that are not having their nights, even Matias Gonçalves, who, is not very young to say, but he's been doing well so far as that new signing from Brazil. I think Morales is someone that, you can give him a shot of a couple games and allow him to get more consistent, because I think he's someone that definitely has that absurdness in him. So I'd pick Jimenez and Morales as the two that stood out for me. So yeah, I think I think there is talent out there. I think obviously consistency is one thing. You have mentioned off that for some that maybe play in the lesser teams that, they can get that kind of future move, similar to what Ramon Sosa did when he was at River Plate, going to Olympia now. So yeah, it seems as if though all these guys want to break out, and obviously, scouts are going to look at these teams, obviously with competitions in the Libertadores Sudamericana starting soon. That's where even more eyeballs are given. So these guys need to step it up and always get consistent when it comes to these type of games. So definitely excited to see what's up in the next few games. So we'll switch gears now into talking about a competition that we had spoken about a couple times, and that is the Club World Cup. We did see a champion, as Fede said, Bayern Munich winning it 1-0 against Tigres, where, I think, guys, we were a bit surprised in a way that Tigres ended up going to beat Palmeiras. It was actually thanks to a goal from Andre Pierre Gignac, their main star. But we're not going to talk about what Gignac did. We're not going to talk about what Benjamin Pavard did. We're not going to talk about, even with Palmeiras, with what's happening with Gustavo Gomez, who, credit to him, he was decent in a side of Palmeiras that wasn't doing well, that unfortunately had the worst performance of a South American team in the Club World Cup, losing on penalties to Al Ahly of Egypt. But we will talk about the player that, had moved from Pumas to go to Tigres a couple weeks ago, basically, something like that. And that's Carlos Gonzalez, the striker from Iturbe, all the way in Guayá, is someone that is, have been getting into the radar as of recently, guys, because of his form in Mexico. But Berizzo has only called him up once as manager. He only called him up in his second game in charge. It was against Mexico, and he played 60 minutes and then did not get a chance at all, despite him scoring goals for Pumas. I mean, you guys have been seeing the goals that have been coming out from there. We see him, I think at one point, he's probably the most consistent goal scorer from Paraguay in the world. So you got him going there, and now he's coming into this Club World Cup. He won the penalty that gave Gignac the goal against Palmeiras. I mean, he wasn't really effective, as you saw in the final against Bayern, even though it was a really tight game. But, I think, and Mario, I'll go to you on this one for this question. You would think that with games like this, playing in the biggest games out there, literally there's nothing bigger than playing in a Club World Cup final, that Berizzo has to start to think, okay, I think we need this guy on the national team for the World Cup qualifiers next month.
Yeah, I would think that that's what Berizzo is thinking right now, or as soon as he was watching the last game versus Bayern, because this guy, although he didn't score, like we said, but he was very effective in the field. He won the penalty to give Tigres the advantage, and he was very attacking, and that's someone that we need. That's someone that the team needs right now. Someone with strength that can go forward and not be scared, and grab the ball everywhere and go attack everywhere. He was recently recognized by FIFA because of his match against Bayern. So he's definitely got the eyes of a lot of people right now. And for a player that just joined, back in December, not too long ago, it's surprising, and it's a good thing for our national, for Paraguay, because we need more players. Not just, we have Miguel Almiron, but I feel like he's like the only one that's doing the job out there. But someone like Charlie Gonzalez could also be just like Almiron, and put our country out there internationally. But yeah, he's definitely a man that Berizzo should call up. I hope that he makes that decision and gets some minutes in March when we play against Chile. So Chile is a very tough opponent, and we'll talk about that I'm sure in the upcoming episodes. But yeah, I'm more excited to see this guy and to see more of this guy.
Yeah, I like Carlos Gonzalez. I like him as like he's a bit of a traditional number 9 in that sense that the Paraguay have maybe been lacking, or we have the players in terms of Tony Sanabria or Angel Romero, but maybe Gonzalez has proved to be, he's a bit more physical. He's maybe a bit better heading ability, and he's been playing well in Mexico and being consistent. He's a player that maybe in Paraguay wasn't talked about as much, because I don't know if Fede will correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he played in Primera in Paraguay. He went straight to Chile. Yeah, never. He went straight to Chile very young. So similar to Tacuara, actually. Tacuara, if you remember, he didn't play very much in Primera, so he was never really, kind of idolized locally like other players, because people hadn't seen him play much. I think he's definitely an interesting option for Berizzo. I don't know if we're talking now who's going to start the game. We're still a long way away. I think it's the kind of option you want to have in your squad for sure, because he's a well-rounded player for that kind of number 9 position, which Berizzo is definitely going to play with. So yeah, I don't know what Fede thinks on that assessment.
Yeah, I think we still need a striker, right? It's very good that he's actually showing up like this. Like, he's scoring so many goals. I love something about his game, that he has a lot of goals from head goals, right? He has a lot of headers. He's very strong in that inside the pitch. So I think he can make a difference in that sense in the game. And we don't have many strikers that are really good going into that head game. And right now Lescano is our starting forward, and Lescano still up to now, he hasn't filled up that spot, especially with the goals that player needs to make. So we're actually still looking for that striker, that main striker. I don't see Carlos Gonzalez coming in March and getting that starting role, but I do think that he can he can give a lot to the team, especially being a sub, especially if games are tied up and you need a player that can go in there and just push the team up there and head balling and I think he can make a difference in that way. And then maybe after a couple of goals, then he can actually get that starting role that I think eventually someone is gonna have to get, right? Because Berizzo has tried so many players since he's been there. I love to see Alan Pareiro. I saw it. I said it a couple of shows back. I love to see Seba Ferreira, who is another very good striker here from Libertad. We have a lot of strikers that I think can have the opportunity. I was even saying the other day, it's such a shame that this whole COVID thing happened, because there were probably going to be a lot of friendly matches where those guys could have had a chance, could have had those minutes that Maria was saying, and maybe now it would be easier to make up that decision to be like, oh, this guy we know, he comes, he puts on that jersey and he still makes the goals. But we don't know about Carlos Gonzalez. He only played one match versus Mexico, and it wasn't a very good match. He barely touched the ball, and I don't know if he really fits into the style that Berizzo's trying to play either, because Berizzo is calling up forwards that are totally different from Carlos Gonzalez. He's going for Lescano. Lescano is not that big. He has another playing style. And, the only player I can compare with Carlos Gonzalez maybe is Federico Santander, and Santander hasn't been called up lately either. So he fits up with what Ralph was saying, that classic 9 player in the box that likes to bounce around players and usually tries to win his spot of being the stronger guy in there. But Carlos Gonzalez can be very useful for the national team.
I think that's a good point. You don't see those type of players, at least under Berizzo, utilizing target men. I mean, obviously, I think that's the crucial part, where you look at someone like Gonzalez, who's someone that likes to win in the air, who is strong. He's like 6 feet as well, so he's a little bit tall in comparison to some other guys who are a bit shorter. But, I think eventually you can't deny the effectiveness. Like eventually him making all those goals in Mexico, you know, you have to reap rewards somehow. And obviously the reward is making it to the national team. If he starts or not, that's a whole different story. But I think eventually, I think someone like him definitely has to be an option. And, you know, it's good because, as Maria said, you want all that depth that you need on the team for these type of games. And, you know, eventually, I mean, you know, no one expected Angel Romero to be the top goal scorer for Paraguay recently, but who's to say that Charlie can do it if he has his opportunity? Who's to say that he can't be someone that can score in those minutes that the team needs it? Like when games get tight and they need to get a goal, you get someone fresh off the bench and, you know, they can do something. So it will definitely be interesting to see what happens and to see if he can keep it up of his new team at Tigres. Obviously, he's starting there as well. I think he had like
the World Cup is over. He's waiting by the phone now.
Literally, like
March.
I played the biggest game that you could play for in your clubs in club history. I need to get that opportunity is probably what he's saying. Like, come on, what more can I need? What do I need to do? I mean, do I have to lift, I don't know, all these weights or something? Like, come on, I played in the biggest game you could play for in a club.
Not lift weights. He needs to run more, right? Because he wants more mobile players. He has to do the opposite. But yeah, I think it's definitely that's the game, right? He played at a high level, taking on Bayern Munich. So I think it's a nice. It definitely must have put him in the window for Berizzo. And I don't know how much time we have, but talking about players, I mean, the big issue Paraguay could have, and a lot of South American teams are going to have, is who can actually play. You know, what pool of players can we pick from because of COVID protocols? We have the Premier League are thinking that maybe they don't want to let players go, which technically isn't allowed by FIFA. You can't hold back players. But if the Premier League decides it, that's a very strong kind of statement. And they're really, what they're looking at, the European clubs right now, is the mess that's happening with the Champions League and the Europa League, that a lot of teams can't play home games, so they're having to go to neutral venues. And they're thinking all of this is happening just before qualifiers. So I don't know if they want to release players. So, I mean, it could be a very difficult situation. And I think, Roberto, you're mentioning off camera, like there's some players that are under COVID kind of restrictions right now that are having to self-isolate. So it's going to be a complicated situation for Berizzo of who can I actually pick, who's available to me.
Yeah, it's not the case of knowing what's best for my team. It's now looking at who can actually come. And, that was kind of the deal that happened in the United States when the whole COVID thing happened here, and obviously even all across the world, like all these restrictions, it hasn't gone away. It hasn't gone away, and I don't think it will go away, as we see with games happening in the Champions League being played in neutral venues, as you said, Ralph. What will happen when these guys have to travel thousands of miles south to South America to play these games? I mean, that's the big issue, but we will definitely see what happens there, and hopefully that all of the best players, no matter where they play, are made available, because those are the games that we need the best players to play in these type of games. So, guys, another great show. I mean, we've talked all about this drama that's been going on and off the pitch, but it was definitely entertaining. So obviously, guys, as always, you can listen to us on YouTube. You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Be sure to leave a comment, a like, subscribe. As always, follow us on Twitter. Do all that jazz at Guarani Vision. So again, thank you so much for listening. So for myself, Roberto Rojas, for Fede Perez, Maria Britos, and Ralph Hanna, thank you again for listening to another episode. See you soon.